Hello, welcome back to A Spiritual Ascension, my own 5-year journey, where I'm telling my entire story from April 2020 to April of 2025, what happened before that, and what has happened since. So, if you're just joining now, please go back to the very first episode, which is episode 1. It says intro, and it kind of takes you through. I think we're at like episode 50 now or something, the entire story. So, if you kind of just jump in now, you're going to kind of like, what's going on? Okay, so I think when we left off, I had just actually I recorded this whole thing, and then when I went to go find it, it was like gone. So I don't know, I did something wrong. So now I had to wait a day because like what I give so much energy into these videos, and it's also kind of like a healing. So it takes a lot out of me to be able to tell this story, and because I have never really revisited this, talking about it out loud, except for you guys for the first time. So it's a little difficult. And so I had to wait like 2 days to kind of get my energy back in order to come back on. Anyway, um, when I left off in the last one, I told you that I had met this woman online. She had contacted me for a reading. And if you don't know, I am a psychic medium and I do readings. So there's a link below if you would like to book time with me. So she had booked a reading with me, and this is going back in April. And I think I did a video before, maybe it's under the excerpts of a spiritual ascension about the people who come into your life. So you never know when someone's going to show up in your life for a reason, for a season, that saying. And um, she was a part of this healing association, and that does jure healing. So that kind of piqued my interest because I am a Reiki master. And I said, oh, wow, I've never heard of this other type of healing. So she had invited me to New York to attend this special celebration they were having with the organization. And then also afterwards, everyone was going to go out to lunch. And I know she was kind of trying to bring me into the organization. So, inviting me to say, see that everyone is, likable and that the organization is good and so forth. Um, anyway, I think when I left off, I said that she had picked me up in Brooklyn on that day. Kind of was like the last day. And as I've done another video of saying, it seems like the divine does things on the 11th hour, like just in the nick of time. Like if things hadn't worked out with her that day, I would have probably had to end up going to a shelter. And I kind of felt like it wasn't meant for me to do that again. So she drove me to her house in Queens, and she said, whatever you need, provided me with food. She was, very nice. And I had said, she said, well, sat me down kind of like, well, what's your plan at this point? And I said, well, I got to find a job. I got to get on my feet so I can get my own place. And after the first couple days, she said, she saw that I was fine. I was nice and kind. And she said, you know, was it Mikasa is Sukasa, like that, for now I could stay there with her. Um, so for the next couple of weeks, it was all about me. I went to the library that was a couple blocks down, and I would just kind of spend time there trying to find a job. And I was on a computer all day. And also to give time away from her because her apartment was kind of small. And I didn't want to be on top of her all the time and give her her space. So, um, I know I feel like I gave so much in that other video that I thought I did, and now it's kind of like I feel like I'm rushing through a lot of the details. Um, so with this organization, this healing organization, they do kind of a ritual healing twice a day. I think it's like 10 or 11 o'clock every day. They're supposed to, you know, kind of do a chanting and then do a healing, I guess, either on themselves or whoever is around them. And they usually, I don't know if there's like five or six locations within the United States that they kind of do a Zoom call around the 11 o'clock hour so that they're kind of all joining the energy together. So while I was there, I was trying to, I'm staying there with you, so let me take part in, what you're doing also and doing the chanting and everything. And I didn't mind it at first. I was a little hesitant because of the religion that was brought up in. And I didn't want anything to feel again like some kind of cult atmosphere. Not to say that it was or anything, but I'm very touchy about feeling like that again. Um, so we would do the chanting together, her and I, or with the group on Zoom. And then afterwards, she would do healing on me. And I felt the energy. Of course, I've been doing Reiki for so long. And um, it was a different feeling energy, um, and had some different experiences with it. Very interesting. And I do feel like from the time that she started till the time that we ended doing this, there was a lot of healing that went on for me. Um, I'm sorry if you're hearing dogs, neighbor's dog, and then they were mowing outside to the landscaping. Um, so I finally came about finding a job, and I had gone for the interview. It was in Manhattan. I don't know if you know this about me, probably not, but back in 2011, I had studied wine and had gone to one of the top wine schools in New York City, and I wanted to become a sommelier. And thought that's what I was going to do after I left Wall Street or whatever. And just very interested in wines. And I knew the countries and the wines and the grapes and the terroir um, like the back of my hand. But I ended up leaving the course just due to some other circumstances before I actually took my certification. So a position came up working with a wine merchant in the city, and um, they were impressed with my um, not only my background of have working on Wall Street, but also um, having a white wine background also. So even before, after I left the interview, I took the bus or the subway and then got on the bus to go back to her house. And even before I got back, the owner had called me and was like, we would like you to join us. And I was like, oh, wow, So I ended up working, getting this job at this wine merchant in the city. This was now going towards the end of June. And I had now been with her like probably about a month. It came to a point now, she was going to go on vacation. Just trying to watch my time, go on vacation. And I think she was going to be gone for just over a week. And at first she was like, you're going to have to find another place to stay when I'm on vacation. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I don't have anywhere to go. And some of her other friends that had met me and everything had come over to the house, and then they kind of talked to her and said, she'll be fine, just let her stay. So just before she was ready to leave, she came to me and she says, I'm going to allow you to stay in the house while I'm gone. So it's like, oh, thank you, because, all I was doing was just kind of going back and forth to work every day. And, me going somewhere else, which I had nowhere else to go, would have, and that was kind of also asking the divine for assistance in that, don't ever be afraid to ask the divine, ask the universe, however you refer to, God, for help in any circumstance. And they already know what you need before you even ask, believe me. So I say they, spirit. Um, so I stayed there for that week. So now during that week, she had left some fruit in a cupboard and I didn't know it. And all of a sudden I'm seeing these fruit flies kind of flying around. I'm like, where are they coming from? I open up this cupboard and all these fruit flies like fly out. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it was like all of a sudden this infestation of fruit flies. It was got so bad. So I had gone to the store and I got some stuff to kind of capture them. But it was getting worse and they multiply. I don't know how, but they multiply and multiply really quickly. And when she had called, I said, kind of have this issue with these fruit flies. I didn't know you had fruit in there. So she kind of laughed it off. Okay, no problem. Now, I don't know if you're listening to this video, hopefully not for the, you've been following this story or have listened to some of my other videos. But one of the main ways of knowing, for me anyway, but I feel like it's something that will happen for most of us. A way for you to know that things are coming to an end in a situation or things start to get worse. And I can always tell now if I'm in a situation and things all of a sudden start to explode, get worse and worse and worse. I know that that situation is going to end pretty soon. Or it may also be telling me it's time to exit that situation. That's kind of what recently happened with the job I was on, the 9 to 5 that I was on. I can't believe it's been 2 months already. And things started to escalate to a pretty serious point. And I said, Spirit's telling me it's time to leave. So between that, I don't know what else had happened. Oh, I know. I hadn't got my first paycheck yet. And I was hoping to stay like maybe to the end of July or into August, have enough money to, New York is so expensive just to be able to even just get a studio apartment or something. And it's also very competitive. You're going for one apartment, you got 20 other people trying to go for that same apartment. And I knew that I may not even get an apartment. I might have to just, at this point, take a room somewhere. So she said to me one day, she said, there's an apartment coming available in my building here. And I said, oh, okay. She says, well, it's, this much a month. And so I'm thinking about, how much I'll be making. And I said, oh, okay, I might be able to handle that. So she kind of um, was taken aback. I think she thought I was already being paid. I had already got money. And so and before she had said to me, she says, I don't want money from you, just get on your feet, do what you need to do in order for you to, be able to move on. So I think that she thought I had already been paid my first paycheck, and which I didn't have anything. I was like just had enough money to get back and forth to work at that point. Um, so I think she was kind of taken aback, like, why are you here still if you have money to get a place? Anyway, the chanting and the healing was becoming a little bit too much for me. I was honoring that because it was her house, and that's what I was expected of me, being in her house. And there was something within me that just, I don't know, I couldn't go along with it kind of anymore. Like I had my own, and there was also certain times where we were talking about spiritual things, and everyone has their own beliefs. I'm never one to say, no, this is the way it is. Even talking to you guys, I always say, this may happen, this may not happen, this is what has happened to me. Everything I say is from my own experience, okay? There's things I know to be true because of my experience. And until you have gone through your own experience, you'll know the truth also. Um, but also understand that everyone has their own beliefs and everyone has not gone through the ascension process. They may feel like they're a spiritual person, um, but if they haven't um, made any growth to themselves, consciously, spiritually, I can sit in a spiritual place, but that doesn't mean I'm growing, allowing myself to grow or rid myself of my ego. Um, so there would be times when her and I would have a discussion and she would say one thing and I said, well, I kind of feel like it's, this is the way I see things. And she's like, no, like this is, and I would be like, okay, So she would kind of get upset with me because she's like, no, this is how it is. I know it to be. And she was not a lot, but she was older than me too. So it was kind of like, you're younger, you don't know what you're talking about, even though I'm probably way older than you guys. You see all the gray hair like coming in here. Um, I think that's another important thing, getting way over time here, that I'm going to have to cut this into two separate ones. We get into a space where um, we can be so stubborn in our beliefs. What shows growth is being able to hear what others have to say and kind of say, you know what, that's interesting. You know what, I'm going to do my research on that because I like what you're saying, or I'm not quite sure I agree with what you're saying, but I would like to do my research on, to find out more. And I've learned over the years where I used to kind of stick with what I knew to say, you know what, there may be something to what this person is saying and allowing myself to grow in that way. Okay. So I'm going to leave it here. And the one I just did, I was able to do the whole thing, but I think I'm talking more in this one. So I'll finish up this segment in the next video. Okay. And I'll see you next time.